residential zone, and it is in your backyard and it's not regulated at all because there are no rules. Commercial, there are rules.
Well,
I mean, there are rules, but not the same, because it's like, well, it's not really commercial. These 10 trucks used to be used for my business, but now they're just mine and I park them back here, and, you know, whatever else.
you know, when we talked about the commercial on the outskirts of town, it could very well be that on the Daniel Road, 3000 South, it could be that there was a store there and a 7-Eleven, and the commercial zone could be right there in the middle of town. And we could expand on it right there. So to say that, you know, we're gonna put all of our commercial on the very outskirts of town, the only reason that we've looked at that and seen it that way is that the potential for residential is in the depth of the town. The potential for all the commercial is along the highway.
See, we are a growing entity and it's been challenging.
That's right, and I understand that, and as I said before, and I guys probably move on. This seems like a good way to control the growth, control, like if you want to have commercial, if you just want to do away with it, but if you want to encourage commercial growth, this is a way to do it responsibly. If they're not coming in with a big machine shop or a cannery or something. This is a really light commercial use. From the outside, it kind of looks like an agricultural use. You know, it fits right in. And so I would say this is an opportunity to take control and do it in a responsible way. Daniel's not going to get these smaller as a town.
The only thought is looking to the future. We hope you guys will stay here for the next 50 years, but that's totally an unknown, right? So in 50 years, somebody comes in, it's zoned commercial now, right? They can put some really ugly things in there based on our code. So we, as planners, I think, I need to look ahead to 50 years from now. Well, maybe it won't matter, but right now I do think I need to look ahead for 10 to 20 years of what that might be. And maybe by then we will have 7-Eleven into the middle of town. Who knows? But you guys have a good plan, and you've worked at it, I see that. We don't know what will happen if you sell it. If it's zoned commercial, they have a lot more options than if they're residential. And that's unfortunate. That I've said that, but that's the way it is.
And all we can do is come to you with what we're going to do.
I
And I think as
understand.
Mr. Bunker, said in his application, I'm not required to tell you what I'm going to do with my property.
He is
And he
not.
didn't.
He did not.
And we're trying really hard to do that.
I understand. And we appreciate that.
You're also aware that the planning and zoning recommended to the town council that not be zoned commercial.
In the first round, yes.
Yeah. Well, in the only round, after that, it went to the council, and the council decided to reverse that.
We're aware of that, we've read the minutes.
Yeah. And there's pros and cons to that still that you can argue.
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it.
We got all evening, right?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Of the beautiful and lovely Mrs. Bunker, aside from the privacy issue, do the Bunkers feel like that this is something they would oppose, or do the Bunkers feel like that from the standpoint of commercial being around them, that would be something that the Bunkers would be okay with?
Oh, me personally, I don't have a problem with it. As I've always said, I think you have the right to your property to do what you want. That's me. I do not appreciate, I'm turned off totally by the way
I
they came
agree.
up
With the privacy
Yeah.
issue
That's-
aside,
Yeah, but for me, my whole deal is I'm so tired of everybody saying the Bunkers zone change.
Right,
The bunker,
right.
it's like Kim said, I'm so tired of everybody saying the same thing over because we had to go through heck to get it, and it was hard. And it's harder because now everybody thinks, well, Eric was the planner, it happened. It didn't just happen. This was a lot of work.
no, I understand.
You know what I mean?
But there are
And-
some people that regardless of
Yeah.
what the arguments are, they're going
Yeah.
to be opposed to it. And there's some people who, regardless of what the arguments are, they're pro in favor of it. And I just wondered what side
No,
the
I do not
the
have-
actual neighbor,
I mean,
She's not
like I
actually
said,
neighbor's property.
Right, but she's.
Yeah, I do
made
not,
it.
and, you know, and the people that own that property was way against us having ours, and, and their neighbor, the one that's between us, was against us going commercial. And they came out to the meetings and they let it very strongly known. But like I said, for personally, I don't know Eric's feelings. Like I said, we raised we raise kids, and so I believe that, you know, what I have in my yard, if that's keeping the kids from doing drugs or,
Okay, so where I
you know,
sit tonight.
I don't have a problem
and-
with it.
And forgive me if this offends anybody, and I appreciate your position. You say, hey, it's gonna be my neighbor, I don't want it. I think you have every right to say that, and I support you in that. But we have one neighbor who's here speaking up, and another neighbor,
But I'm down a ways.
I get that.
There's another neighbor.
Yeah, there's two neighbors that are right next to him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Blaine. It's a
Okay,
neighbor.
and you're opposed to it as well? Okay, thank you, that's what I needed to know.
Okay, any more discussion?
Yeah, can you use those haulers for hauling hay?
No, I don't know, we need somebody to, actually, we're gonna have somebody come and cut the
Yeah.
grass on the 3 acres to the side of us and
You might try that.
give them the hay, I don't know.
I think he's trying to say, is this actually
Oh, can we haul
an
hay?
agricultural use and not a commercial use?
Oh, can I haul hay with the dumpsters? Yeah, you bet, we could
Yeah.
put probably, I don't know, 50, 60 bales in each
How high
one.
can you throw a bale, John?
Yeah. At this
It's a
point,
tall
I
wagon.
can't throw it, I'm not gonna push it.
It sure unloads good.
Yeah, we could
Yeah,
put a
we'll
couple
put
of
it.
them.
I just want to, you know, again, I didn't want to offend by including this photo. And I think either, whatever the decision is tonight, the council will hear this and we will take this out of our presentation when this comes before the council. And if there's a Google image or Earth image, we'll use that. We'll take this out and no one will see it again.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Are we ready for a motion? For, against, continue? Is there stuff that you guys maybe need answered that you need to look at?
Oh, it's good. Good night.
See, don't.
Bye, John.
Is there something else you guys would like to review? Would you like to review the commercial code?
I looked at it.
You good? Everybody's got all their information? You ready for a motion?
That's what we got.
We got some discussion now.
No, not discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Oh, you're ready to make a motion?
I'm pretty sure where it's gonna go, but I would make a motion that because these folks are trying to do things the right way, I would move that we approve the zone change.
So your motion is for a recommendation of approval?
That's correct.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
You gotta make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Now discussion on the motion. Got enough discussion or, okay. All right.
What else did it say?
Okay, call for the vote. All in favor? Aye? Any opposed? Okay, you need 4 votes to make a motion. So, 3, you just go off. Is there another motion?
Well, I guess we're playing that game. I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the council that we deny.
Okay, I have a motion for denial. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay? Any discussion?
The only discussion I have is that it's in the middle of residential area.
And it's,
It's not the right place.
and the neighbors, we've talked about how
They're here, we're representing the neighbors.
the petitioners have come and followed all the rules, but the neighbors have come and followed all the rules. They have as much right to have their voices heard as residents of this town, as a petitioner who has come and asked to do something that will make his neighbors unhappy. And I don't see why the petitioner should have more power than the people who live here.
Okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor of denial? Show hands. 3. All opposed? 3.
Is there a tiebreaker?
Is there a tiebreaker?
It was 3-3.
Yeah, 3-3. Is there do we have another motion?
we don't have one left.
Well, we could continue, I guess. No,
Absolutely, you can continue.
I make a motion that we send it to the council without a recommendation.
I'll second that one.
A motion, the second, to send to the council without a recommendation. Any discussion?
That's a cop out.
It is,
It is, but I don't know that we're gonna get anywhere otherwise.
Oh,
unless I can vote like this.
well, the only thing is I think of is we had a continuation, maybe we could have more discussion on the pros and cons and be able to understand each person's, where they live's opinion. That's the only thing I can throw out.
Okay, so I have
I don't know, is that a motion?
no, well, we have a discussion on the motion. We have a
Okay.
motion and a second right now. So you want to share your motion, Jay, or your discussion? Apparently not.
Yes.
A little louder. Okay.
Oh, are you talking to us?
Yeah.
I thought maybe you'd like to share your discussion.
Discussion, but
Jay? No, please make your point. Yeah, I think your point's valid.
Well, I kind of made that point, I just didn't want to hear it.
I did hear you. I'll say what Jay did.
I will say it. I think everybody already heard it, but I will repeat it, is that I don't understand your point in wanting to award this to them for good behavior because they came and followed all the rules. Because that was your statement,
Yes.
that the reason that you're voting yes for them is because they came and followed all the rules.
Correct.
And my point is, I don't know why they, one entity who wants a thing, has more power in this body than 4 neighbors who've come and given their impassioned pleas that we not do this to them.
I would disagree with your point that they have more power. What my point would be is that each board member evaluates in their own mind the pros and the cons of each position. And until we go out and do some enforcement on those who are blatantly breaking the rules, I don't think we can deny property owners the right to use their own property.
So you're.
If I paint my house bright purple, no doubt I'm gonna make a lot of enemies.
that is
I
so-
still have the right to paint my house bright purple. And when we talk about, this is an agricultural community, and if it's agricultural, well, all bets are off. I disagree with that. I think if you're running a tractor out there at 2 in the morning and it has the exact same Cummins diesel engine in it that a forklift would have, and there's a business operating a forklift, the forklift is illegal, but the baler isn't. I think that's wrong. If you measure the noise level with decibels, and that both comes out the same, I think both should be banned. I don't think that it's right and proper to have certain entities have a free ride. And those people who are operating businesses without having enforcement by this town are having a free run. I think that's wrong. And I think because these folks have tried to do things according to the statutes and according to the rules and according to the town broad indicators, I don't think that we should tell them that they don't have the right to do with their property what they're looking to do. If in fact this is something that disturbs the neighbors at 2 in the morning, I think then we go out there and say, license revoked. I think that if
It
they,
happens so often in this town.
well, that's my point. I think that,
So we create another mess.
No, this controls that issue,
well, yes and no.
It does.
because there's regulations for commercial
We can
business
only
to
run our
stop.
The problem, and the point is that Gary made, is that if you get a commercial zone and you're violating something in the commercial zone, we can do that.
Yes.
And my point is that there's, for each one of you, there's a dozen others that will do exactly the same thing, that we cannot go out and say, you're breaking the rule of the commercial zone. And I think Gary has had this point for months.
Like the guy before us that just operated there.
Right.
Or the neighbor that you have.
Or the guy down the
And-
street that's
and-
running his 10-wheel dump trucks and his.
Well, asphalt pavers or whatever else that's in there. I mean, I think, Jay, that yes, we need to be responsible and sensitive to residential neighbors. However, I don't think anybody gets a golden coin, residence or commercial. I think
The
that
last 2 applicants for commercial property have been awarded over the pleas of the neighbors, which makes me fearful that if somebody decides that what they want to do, okay, I'm only like 2 fences away from Gordon's. If they decide they want to run a full-on commercial operation off their property, then your contention would be, well, we should let it because you should do what you want with your property.
no, that's not what I
Well, they're
can.
on the highway.
Gordon's are not.
Well, they've only got 1 fence between them, what the new commercial is.
If there is any kind of disruption, noise ordinance or anything else, I think we should go out and enforce. What this town has been very, very reluctant to do is to enforce the laws that are already on the books.
And so we should.
I think that that's what we need to do, is enforce the laws that are on the books.
Okay, so.
And I'm sorry, Jay, I don't mean to offend you, that's really not my
No,
point.
I'm not offended.
Okay. I just, each one of the board members, or each one of the planning commission members are here because we each evaluate, we take in the information, we evaluate our own best judgment. And your best judgment is what it is, mine is what it is, Gary has some points, Kim has points. None of us are gonna agree 100% at all times on everything. And to be sensitive, that's why there's more than one of us on the board. And if anybody else has any different thoughts or ideas, please jump in. I don't want to be the only one running my mouth here tonight.
Okay,
Discussion's over.
discussion, any more? Okay, so we have a motion to send,
What was the
the
motion?
motion is to send to the council without a recommendation. We had a second, we had discussion. Any more discussion on that motion? Seeing none, call for the vote, all in favor? 4. Any opposed?
I will abstain.
Okay, we have 4, 1 against, 1 abstain. We'll send that to the council without a recommendation. Okay. So this is all good. Great discussion to have. They cannot say it wasn't reasonably debated.
Had not.
That claim won't be there.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I might. If Danielstown itself would have got off a dead X, and when these people first moved in and put that stuff in there, he was illegal, then this guy probably wouldn't have bought it. Because Danielstown didn't obey their own rules. They got the zoning commission, got zoned that way, but you let them sneak in the back door, and you didn't do anything about it. And I feel that guy ought to go back to, well, I don't know who he ought to go to, whoever he bought it to, and see if he can go reverse it or something. But I'll tell you what, it's, Danielstown is asking for this problem themselves. On their indecision to obey to enforce the rules that they've already made. And I think kind of the whole doggone board ought to,
And can I say, here.
what they say.
Here, I agree with
You gotta be
you.
loud.
So,
I think you need to call the mayor.
well, let me just.
I've been asking for the last, for a long time, when Bunker will tell him, have you ever served a notice? I've asked him how many times, have you ever served a notice on that guy? Get him out of there or fine him $10,000. How many times have I asked you that?
I don't know, 3
A
or
whole
4.
bunch of times.
That's right.
And I'll tell you, the township just asked for the troubles they're at getting here tonight.
Yes, but we are buying a bulletproof vest. So we're gonna send somebody out.
So let me tell you how it
I am.
works.
Roof vest.
Because everybody seems to think that the town's not doing anything. Meanwhile, we have a bunch of lawsuits right now going. So what happens with an illegal business or a use that's out of compliance? If we get a signed complaint, the town has acted on that. If we would have received a signed complaint on this, the town would have acted on it.
You mean I
we're-
should have wrote it on paper?
Yep,
Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier?
I wasn't gonna bring up if you could write.
Bunker, bunker, bunker.
So that's how it works. We have lawsuits right now that we're spending money on defending the code. And that's how the town council has opted. We're not gonna get an enforcement officer to go out there and look for these. We're waiting for somebody to make a complaint. A lot of people don't wanna complain. They don't wanna be on paper. If it offends you, you shouldn't have a problem putting it on paper. And that's what the council's opinion is, that if it offends you, put it on paper, and the town will investigate that and we'll move forward with that. So that's where it's at. So to say the town's not doing anything, we are doing something,
Is it better to write it on paper or get right there and say, hey, I'm against it?
Both.
You know, and
yep. Well, that's just what the council's done. If they get a written complaint, because now you're a witness, by putting it on, you're a witness.
all these
you'll
other
be going to-
people's witnessed every time we've been here. That
Absolutely.
we've been against it, and I don't know what else it takes.
Yep.
Hit with a hammer.
Well, and you guys as petitioners didn't do your homework either.
I shouldn't have came in, just kept operating, right?
Unless someone complains, it sounds like unless
You
I
know, mean,
wrote a letter, that sounds like that's true, but you're lucky you don't live by me, because I've
We're
written the
such
letter.
a small town that we
yesterday.
can't go get everybody, so we pick the ones that we have complaints on. We have
We moved
witnesses.
as quickly as we could to get in front of you
But
guys.
the folks that were before you purchased the property, just make sure you could do what you were thinking, but anyway, that's water under the bridge, isn't it?
Will this automatically be on the agenda for the next council meeting, or do we have to do anything to get on the agenda?
Well, the council will have to look at it, because they usually, rezones, they usually hear them in November. So the applications required to be in by July, so you're actually ahead of the game, but they are required to act on those in November.
All right, so
So,
November is when we'll be here.
yeah, and if they move that up, we'll surely contact you, and yes, I'm sure that you guys want to move it along, and if the council's willing to move that up, then, but that's when they have to act on it, by November.
So they
You'll
just
see on the
keep-
minutes, that's when mine was acted on in November. Even though I put it in June, it took them till November to act on it. And that's what the code states, they'll act on it.
So they can just keep operating, moving right ahead until November.
Well,
Is
somebody
that-
signs
that's
a
the question?
complaint.
If somebody signs a complaint, then of course.
I'm gonna sign a complaint tonight.
Okay.
See, and there's two issues. You brought up, well, so I say I'm against it and they keep on going. If you're against it, there's two issues to be against. One, you're against what has happened there or is happening now. And the second is, you're against what's going to happen or what might be approved. They're not the same and they're not interchangeable.
They're not. One's a zone change, one is the use of the property.
So it's two separate things, and if you
Yeah.
sign a
The
complaint,
zone change.
The zone change is different than the use that they're
That's in
doing right now.
November.
The zone change won't be heard at the council till November, but the use, that's ongoing all the time. So, it's the same thing that it's the nuisance law, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much, guys.
yeah.
Thank you.
If they'd have been kicked out of there the first month they was in there, it'd have been all over and done with.
Okay, that takes us to item number 5, conditional uses. The council has put a moratorium on all conditional uses in the town. That has a limit of 6 months. So what we need to do in that time, I went to some training and the state is recommending that conditional uses, if it's on your list, they're gonna be able to come.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
If you have a conditional use on your list in the RA5 and they apply, you are able to put mitigation on that, but there's no way you can keep them out.
So in other words, we want to take a careful look at that list and then go through it and see what should be there and what shouldn't be.
Yes.
In all of our zones.
Can I recommend that you also look at the permitted uses as well?
I'll go more with it.
Very,
That's a
very,
novel approach.
I took a look at the commercial and I didn't see anything that really applied to this business.
in his report, I didn't see anything there, and that's what I was wondering if they even applied for the right zone.
There was one, yeah, under commercial, I think there was one, something about auto rental, off-site parking or something like that. And that might be more than what he's trying to do, but not in the RA5. I mean, it stays as it is. I don't think there's a permitted use for the parking dumpsters, but I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
But anyway, you might want to take a look at the permitted uses when you're also looking at conditional.
yeah. So I put that on the agenda so we can look at this and get a plan. How do you want to move forward? You want to go zone by zone? You
Well,
wanna
that
go-
was part of my question. The conditional uses is for each
Each
zone.
zone has its conditional uses.
Residential, the residential RA, whatever,
Right.
commercial, industrial.
So, and I probably shouldn't even pick an example, but.
And all of them are available in the town code.
Yes, they're all in the town code, so you can go in there and look, and it'll have uses, and then right behind the uses is conditional uses.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Approved in.
Okay.
So how would you like to start? Do you want to start at the front of the code? Do you want to go to commercial? Do you want to start in RA5?
I think we ought to have all them in front of us before we start.
Absolutely.
I would
Start
suggest
at the top and work to the bottom if we're gonna do it.
All we're doing is getting a plan tonight. We have 6 months. It's been requested that we do it faster than that, just for your information.
Yeah, council probably wants a little time to look at it.
Yes.
I'm a little behind the curve here. I don't know where this has come from or what's driving it. Can you elaborate on any of that?
Yes, so the property ombudsman holds a training, usually quarterly. You probably all get emails to that. You go down to Orem and sit in there on a Saturday. There's one this Saturday coming up. It's regarding our affordable housing element to our general plan, reporting how that goes back to the state and the requirements that we'll be required to do. Those are also online. You can go online and look at those. After they do those, they put them online for a while, and you're able to review those. So there's a lot of training that you can get to, but, so I went to it, and the other one is, what's the other one? It's not, they just call it Land Use 101, but it's put on by the Land Use Academy. Land Use Academy puts them on. And so you can go on, and they just hold these trainings, and as members, we encourage all the training you can get. So
Okay.
these are free. You just
But my question is where has this come up where we've decided that we need a moratorium in the town of Daniel?
because we're receiving a lot of conditional use interest right now, and I don't think we're prepared.
Okay.
And
Is the town council
Commission.
recommending that to us?
they've got the moratorium on. Now they've sent this to you to look at the conditional uses and make sure that that's what the town wants is what's on there. So you're their land use authority. You're the ones that are in charge of running the general plan. All those plans that were brought up tonight, that's the planning's department.
Is a conditional use something that can be done other than what's printed and published in the book?
No, not really. Because then you're outside of, I mean, if it's comparable to something in there, you might be able to relate it, like we're talking about business services.
Right.
You know, things like that. Something that's relatable, that's why it comes before you.
So, is there a question about what's published under conditional uses that we're looking at and thinking, hey, maybe we hadn't better do that anymore? Are there items that have come up that are like that we say, oh, wait a minute, they're gonna apply for a conditional use under this and we don't want that?
That's a general thing, we're looking at the entire code. Because what happened is they've been taken to court, the land use authorities, the trainers are telling us, if there's a conditional use in your code, you will not be able to keep that use out.
Okay.
You may be able to limit it, and you may be able to do certain things, but you are not gonna be able to keep that out.
So, of the court cases that are pending right now, how many would you say are conditional use issues?
There's a lot of
I'll call
them.
you back in a minute.
I can't even tell you how many.
Okay.
It's just, it's so big that they're recommending everybody goes through their conditional uses and
So,
get
so
rid of-
this is something that we're dealing with right now and being charged fees, lawyer fees, legal fees, in order to take it to court and have the courts tell us, well, if there's conditional use, you're gonna,
Right.
okay, so that's,
And I've said this, you probably heard it from me before, conditional uses are not good. You can get a conditional use, and you can put the conditions on them, and they can pick that condition you put on it, take it to the appeals, and get that condition removed. And so that's what's happening, is you're, I mean, you just pick one, and then you can do any example you want.
okay. Is this gonna go any better than home occupation?
I believe it's gonna go a lot better.
Because we worked on that for a long time and ended up with a big zero.
Well, some of these, you know, like the bed and breakfast, we haven't had fire flow in a lot of these places. And so that hasn't been an issue. Now we've expanded the water lines and we have fire flows, that could become an issue. Do you want a bed and breakfast in RA5 zone? I mean, you can just run through that list and
And a bed and breakfast, for instance, is an approved conditional use if they meet the requirements.
it's a conditional use.
Okay.
Residential facility for the elderly, of course,
We have to have that.
we have,
Yeah, there's-
those, I mean, that's not even a conditional use.
Yeah, we don't get a say in that one, do we?
No.
Accessory residential unit.
Accessory residential
I don't
unit,
know what that is.
that's a basement apartment.
That's a basement apartment, what'd they say, basement apartment?
Or it's an accessory residential
Or,
unit.
well, down by City Creek, it's that little box that's really just a trailer house that
Yeah,
you
that,
put in your
It
backyard.
could be freestanding too.
yeah, it could be.
Okay.
Yeah, it could have, as long as it could be an accessory building.
These are for RA5s.
This is RA5,
Okay.
yep. So as you go down through there, I mean, there's just a ton of things that, do you want them in there? That's my question to
Electric
you.
substation.
Well, you gotta have to have those.
Well, we don't have any.
No, we'll just talk off the grid and use kerosene again.
Gas pressure control stations, water storage, water pressure control stations, pump stations, sewer pumping stations, combination utility right-of-ways, petroleum pipeline right-of-way, underground.
And the way most of these came along is they were just adopted from somebody else's town code from years ago, right?
Well, this is the county code, remember? We
County.
adopted the county code,
That's
so.
right.
So cemeteries, mausoleums, nursery, primary and secondary education. I mean, a lot of this has laws that have been written since this has been adopted that over supersedes this. So,
We might as well take those out.
So what you're saying?
religious activities, we have one on the thing.
We should all take the time to read through all of the uses and
Yes,
conditional uses and make notes and come prepared to comment on them.
yes.
Yeah, we'll have a lot better argument if we can be prepared.
Should we have it in a work meeting or in a regular scheduled meeting?
How does the commission want to
I'll
handle
throw it out there, so we can maybe move along a little quicker. Knowing us, this is gonna take us forever. Just throwing that out
it?
there.
We only got 6 months.
Bad.
It expires.
That's seen our agenda today.
We're not very successful, I don't think.
I think we're very successful.
Oh, thank you.
I think
Well, we
it's
just set
awesome.
aside an hour at the end of our next planning meeting and work on it for an hour. And
Hopefully our next planning meeting, we only have like 15 minutes of agenda items and then we can spend on
So which ones you want to look at in the next meeting?
Let's start at the top. P160 is the first one.
You want to go, just start?
It's at the
work
top.
with-
is
Okay,
that the top?
okay, so we'll start at P160. Can we handle more than one in a night?
that. Yes. I
Yes.
think so.
Okay,
RA5's next.
Gary, we're gonna see these dumpster people again next month.
No, we're not.
Now, you watch. Town council's gonna send it right back to us like they did that other one.
Not till November.
Well, okay.
Now,
Mary Duggan had a comment, couldn't get her hand up quick enough.
no,
Oh, I just want, for those of you who don't know, back when we started the town, we adopted the Wasatch County Title 16 and became our Title 8. And so there was a lot of stuff there that needs to be looked at for sure. That was in 2006. And a lot of changes have been made over that time frame. So it's great that this process has started.
do we have mountain zone in our town?
Yes.
Yes?
Isn't it up on the
I think we
I
have,
thought that was P160.
I think we stop at the P160. I think the mountain zone's in the county.
Okay, so we could, hey, that won't take much to lead.
Start with that.
Start with that. That won't take
That
us much.
might actually make sense, because I'm not sure we have any property that qualified for mountain zone.
I didn't read what it was, I just see it, ooh.
However, it's only one application away from an annexation.
That's true.
Mountain zone, yeah, there's like
So if we take it off as not a possible zone, then we don't have to deal with it?
No, it would have to come in as P160 or something else.
Yeah, you'd have to.
group camps.
What?
They can have a group camp.
I was just gonna add, instead of taking it one zone at a time, it may be better to, you know, whether we do one zone at a time, but put them all up on kind of a matrix. Because oftentimes, when we did this just recently, there's things in the P160 that you want in RA5, you don't want to get rid of them, but you're moving them back and forth as much as you're saying what you like and don't like.
Some of them overlap.
And there's overlaps, and sometimes overlap, you know, do we want people to live in the P160? You know, so sometimes there's overlaps that are good, sometimes there's overlaps that are bad. Industrial and commercial are two that get really, you gotta do those together.
Commercial.
So I just, before we say we want to do one at a time, maybe we work through the matrix logically, but let's have them all up there, because otherwise.
I think we can do them one at a time, but we do need to realize there's overlap between the two as we move to the next one. So it may make sense to do all the residential ones and then do the commercial ones.
Commercial is a lot.
And then just be aware, you know, when we're doing it, I think it's good to have the other ones up there so that you, whether you're focused on it or not, you're either compatible with that use or you're not.
And if it is a conditional use and you think it's in that, we need that, can we make it a use and put the restrictions that you want on it?
Yeah.
Take it away from conditional. and make it
Right, and
use.
make it a use and put those restrictions on it. You can do that here, but you have to do this.
Then it's not conforming to a condition, it is
That's the code.
conforming or not conforming.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you're not looking at a condition at all.
What's the difference between a permitted
There's
use and a
only
conditional?
There you go.
Casey had got it.
Yeah, I have permission to use a conditional one.
Not
What
these,
now, say what? One had, you can
Town
put
council.
conditions on it and the other can't?
they
Is
said.
that what you said?
One is allowed.
All right, okay, next one.
You're watching for
Ask and meet certain conditions.
some stuff.
Okay, so the condition is just that
Okay,
the
well, they're
conditions on it
probably down there
and
ransacking
the
your house
permitted
right
is.
now.
That's okay. You're moving stuff.
Thank
See
you.
you, Blaine.
Commercial.
So if we, and that's my recommendation, we get rid of all of them that we can, conditional uses.
That makes sense.
I've always said conditional uses they're just a nightmare. From an administration standpoint, they're just hard to administer. Because now you have all the conditions you put on there, now we have to go back and monitor those conditions to make sure that that's actually what they're doing. Do they really only have 12 dogs there? You know, it just becomes an administration nightmare.
And in one of those books that we got, one of those inserts, it said that, can try to get rid of conditional uses.
Yeah, and they've always said that, but now the courts are starting to side with the applicants, and so now it becomes even a bigger issue.
So what happens
Services.
when we strike some that are already being used as conditional uses, some business or some conditional uses that are in effect right now?
That's fine, you can continue that use,
They use the continued
as long as
use,
it was,
just
as
like
long as
on
it
my
was legal,
property.
when we did that, it works just like the zoning. That use can continue, once it's been abandoned for a year, then that goes away. But they can continue, if they legally set it up, they have that right to continue.
Okay. I think that's probably a question that might come up eventually.
Yeah, well, the only time that would come into question is if they're doing something outside of that would fall underneath another code. So if they're outside of that and doing something to the neighbors, that's offending the neighbors, health, safety, I mean, all those things. Anything that falls under the nuisance law, it doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 100 years, as you can tell by all the meat farms that's been moved out. The nuisance law comes in and it's pretty powerful. And that's 9 out of 10 times, that's what I'm using when I go visit a problem. I have the nuisance law. It's just, it's the most powerful thing that we have.
Is it written down somewhere in our code?
Yeah, we have nuisance law.
I've never
and
kinda
the
seen
state
it.
has one. If you decide not to have one, the state has one If you don't have it, they have one for you.
Of course they do. And the
So-
federal government probably has one too.
So we can be more restrictive, but we can't be less restrictive than what a state code is.
Okay.
So before the council issues a business license, a new business license, do they look to see if that's actually allowed in the zone? Because I know in the past they have not.
Probably not, with our new system we was gonna have come here. They were all gonna come here and then be every 2 years. And of course, that's been tabled. Is it, I mean, we can resurrect that at any time.
Why was it tabled?
We got nowhere with it. There was nothing in that whole thing that we did. There was, when I got done, I looked at that document and there's absolutely nothing in that document that I don't already have right here. In fact, this is more strong, because we were allowing some things and in here it's not allowed. This is a more strong code than what we developed. And so at the end of the day,
Right, I agree, the one that was developed was a lot more lenient.
More
But I'm
lenient.
just saying, I'm just hoping that the council's looking at that before they issue a new business license, because that's been, I think, the biggest part of the problem. Well, you gave me a license to do it, so I should be fine.
yeah,
And I know of several examples, even where the applicant said, well, it's okay because I'm putting it all on the back of my property. Oh, okay, great, we'll give you a license. And I'm like, you know,
So that,
causing
you're
our own
saying that
problems.
was it, because you guys did, I thought, agreed that it would come here. So the business license and all that, it didn't pass because the other,
you're right,
nothing
that
else
was all
passed.
included in the whole occupation.
Oh, I thought I thought that was these guys had asked to see that, and I thought that was,
No, that was all included in that, so
Oh.
we tabled that, and we can surely pull something out if,
well, and I guess I don't really care if it comes here or not, but I just hope that the council's at least looking at it and making sure that it fits before they issue a new business license,
Well,
because that's
clearly-
what I'm hearing is,
yeah.
well, they gave me a business license, it must be okay.
as I say, being at the town council meetings, I think that you guys they've asked more questions. And the new people, I mean, I don't think they've done anything with the ones that are old.
No,
But
we
the-
haven't,
I was
as long
gonna
as there's
s-
not been any complaints on the old
Yeah.
business license applicants. I'm trying to think of some that have come through recently, that have come before us.
A dog grooming one
Yeah,
that
and
was,
then we had a dog walker or a dog pet sitter.
Yeah, that's fine,
We
I'm just
had-
saying, I'm
we had-
hoping that we're looking at it.
We had a handyman come in and he worked alone and he had just a pickup truck. So he was not gonna have anybody coming in and out of his house. Yeah, so I think we look at it. We haven't had anybody like him come in before us.
Yeah, that one never did come in, but.
No, well, I think a couple of years ago they did, when,
I
because
remember
I
the
was
mushroom
sitting out,
business.
yeah,
I remember the mushroom business.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and the county did issue them a license, it expired in 2017, but the dumpster business had a county license.
So how did the county issue them a license for Daniel Town?
I don't know, they were pretty stringent on us, not issuing licenses and making sure they knew who we did. I don't know, they produced one from the county, and so they went back and tried to get that reissued, and they told them, oh, you're in the town of Daniel. So apparently the line's moved since then.
What a mess.
Yes,
Should at least be able to get the license fee from the county.
well, I don't know, you guys probably haven't followed that through, but as these licenses we're issuing, we send a list to the county, they're sending a list out, trying to tax the
Yes, they do.
property for that. So that was the reason that they wanted it.
Yeah, it's quite a form.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I've kind of watched a few of those and I haven't seen anybody get affected by that yet, but I could have missed some,
Yeah,
because all the taxes are online.
yeah. Yeah, they sent it to me and my business has been closed for 12 years. But I get that thing every year because I have a license with the town.
And I said,
It's
I
like,
haven't
I wrote a
seen-
letter, I don't have staff to answer your letter, quit sending it. But I think that these conditional uses will be at the forefront of what we gotta get through. And we might as well look at the uses while we're there. If there's something that doesn't fit, get rid of it. If there's something that needs to be in there, let's make the recommendation to council and see if we can get it in.
So the hour before our next meeting, is that something you guys want to do?
Just do it. If you want to do it without me, you can do it before, that's fine.
No, I just want to get something done.
I know, it's
It
just-
seems like we do nothing other than talk
And
and discuss, and we.
It sounds so much better coming from a commissioner than an applicant. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I got offended the last time an applicant said that.
I got it, I did all those things.
That's why I'm up in here about 5 after.
By about 6 p.m.
Anyway,
it's
okay,
not
whatever.
noon for me most days that time of the year.
But I think we can just walk through, if you guys will do your homework, look at it, see have what you have in mind, we'll go ahead and put it on, work our way through it, if you wanna go a matrix thing, and, I mean, I'm all for getting rid of the uses, because they're hard to administer, and unfortunately. Can I get into this? Oh, yeah, I volunteered, huh?
Are we required to have any public meetings about the changes?
When the code is adopted, we will.
Okay.
So we'll make the recommendation to council, they'll decide it and adopt it, and then we'll run through the public hearing, and then we'll adopt it, so. Once we're ready to move that forward, we'll have the public hearings.
And I may just be dreaming, but I think we'll have an easier time with this than we did with the commercial application.
I think
I hope
so.
you're dreaming,
I hope
since
I'm
the other
not
was a
dreaming.
total
That's right.
failure.
Well, and again, if you look at that and there's something that you don't think you want on there, I mean, I'm looking at the P-160, metal ore mining, crude and petroleum. Unfortunately, this crushed and broken stone quarrying, I mean, that's a conditional use. But the legislature, it says that's critical infrastructure for anything that's existing, and they've taken all the regulation away from the municipalities. So that's now considered critical infrastructure, and you don't get to regulate that.
Yep.
So what's with the
Why
big
that
rock
has a lot of
pile
influence.
behind, over by the rock?
Delta Stone.
Delta Stone, thank you. There's a huge rock pile back there now. That's just been there a month maybe at the most.
Yeah, no, it's been there quite a while, it's all their saw
I just
cuttings.
noticed it, I guess. It's
It's
gotten
come and
bigger.
gone over
Yeah.
the years.
It's gotten bigger.
No, it's gone to zero and came back.
Oh,
They
came
actually-
back,
zero.
They
okay.
actually bring in a crusher and crush it.
Okay. Jeez,
Every
it's
other year or
terrible.
so, it all goes away.
Yep.
I just noticed it was back, I guess. I didn't miss it when it was gone.
It was really dusty today when I went by.
I feel so bad for those people that leave downwind. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes when the dust gets really bad here, it's blowing from Nevada. It's a dust storm that blew up Provo Canyon.
Okay.
And I don't know how the regulation on dust, I mean, that's all gonna fall on EPA now, with municipalities not being able to regulate. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
When the wind blows and I look to the west and I just see all that dirt blowing towards Heber City, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what's out there? It's so dusty.
The West Desert.
Yeah, it was a good idea to put all their commercial and industrial right on the lower end of town where all the dust
So
can blow.
smart.
Yeah, it was a good idea.
Wind starting side, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right,
yep,
next
true.
meeting.
Okay, we'll be doing that in our next meeting. Do your homework, we'll start at the front and work our way through as fast as we can go.
Okay.
Okay, planning report. Right here. This is what happened in your town in April. Any questions that you see on there? It's the same one that you got. Got one of those, Mary?
I think I already have.
You probably do. He was in the council meeting.
Yeah, it was.
Is that all?
That's it. That's all we're gonna report on. The list is bigger for this month already.
What's Wasatch Back rental?
Wasatch Back rental is going into the propane place.
Oh,
So So Suburban Propane has leased their building out for Wasatch Back Rental. They're working through their regulations right now.
What are they gonna do, Eric?
They're renting recreational vehicles.
Really? Out of Suburban Propane?
Yeah. And they are also gonna retail propane, is
Okay.
their plan.
Does Suburban still have an active business license?
No,
They're still using those tanks.
they are,
Is that a violation?
yes.
Didn't you say they were gonna apply for a new license last
They-
meeting?
So we're calling them the anchor tenant there. And when they called and said they was getting ready to do this, I told them, well, we're on our way up to give you a cease and desist because you're operating without a license. We'll take care of that right away. We haven't seen it in a month, but
So if they're given a cease and desist and one of those great big semis rolls up there and starts pumping into those tanks, do we have deputies that'll come out and shut them down, or what do we do?
oh yeah, if they're outside of that, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah, you have deputy come out and they'll cite them, and we go, that's why we have a justice court agreement. Yep.
Is the web application for determination of buildable parcel, is that from the last city council meeting or from?
No, and they wanted to be on the agenda tonight. They've acquired some property from Casper's. And so some of you may have noticed the fence has moved. I believe they've acquired their 50 feet. And so they'll be coming back before you, asking for, depends on what they're asking for.
Who is
So
this
is that
again?
just a lot line adjustment, or do they have to, doesn't the parcel have to stay the same size?
Yeah, so they gave Grant on the back. They gave him
Okay.
some and took some off the side, is my understanding.
That was the Webbs?
Yeah. Susan Kohler.
Did that get them their 100 feet of?
It will get them 50 foot, so our road width is 50 feet, so they want to construct a road
Oh,
and then take the 100 feet off of that
off of
road.
their road, go
So,
back to.
I haven't seen the plans for that. They were looking at doing possibly a multiple subdivide, which would be subdivision, which they'd have to go down, fill out the application, and it's a bigger process than just the law.
So the last email I had was, I asked, are they just trying to get one buildable lot or are we subdividing? And I got a response that said, I'll get right back to you. And I haven't heard anything since. So I think they're trying to figure that out.
They've got enough for 3 lots though, don't they?
That's what the
Potentially.
sign, that's what the sign says. Oh, we know.
The information we have to date is the parcel is around 15 acres.
Right, that's what I'm
15
saying.
divided would be enough for 3 lots.
Were it to turn out to be correct,
I have not made, we haven't had an application, we haven't reviewed
I'm not
yet,
asking
so,
that, I'm just
yeah.
saying theoretically, they could.
Based on the information we have, it appears like three lots would be feasible.
Okay.
But there's a lot of things we
They
don't
couldn't
know.
get, they couldn't get like, say for instance, 5 out of it, is my point.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be, 3 would be the most as we understand it, but
Pardon us for being leery, we've been caught before.
I get that, I'm just talking hypothetically.
Okay,
But if they work with the neighbor next door and it turns into a 50-acre
Sure,
parcel, then,
sure.
until we get an application, I hesitate to say.
That
anything.
isn't what my question was,
I
I
know.
was saying an existing situation.
Based on what we saw last time, I expect them to be back with
Okay.
1 to 3.
That makes sense.
Anything's on the table.
So what was the ag building for Simpsons?
Ryan Simpson put in an ag permit for a barn. He's bought some property, he says, out in the basin, he's bringing hay in, wants to store it. So he's put in for an ag permit. I believe that's been issued last week. I remember, I think Amelia sent out an email last week.
Okay. So then we checked side lot variances and all of that fun stuff.
Setbacks,
Setbacks.
Site plan we
We have-
have looks good.
and
Because he wants to put it on the back of his property, right?
no power, no water. He's signed that document. So we have, that's a pretty strong document, that we put on there, so. And along with, I think the business license too, it's on the application that you read the code and you fall within it.
I know, it's just that nobody reads and then say, oh, well, they gave me a license, so that's approved.
There are those folks there?
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I just noticed where some earth moving's been taking place, and I think it's a little closer than what the setbacks are required, but we'll see. There's nothing in there yet.
So the site plan looked good. When it gets built, like, obviously.
Did I not send that out to you guys? You haven't seen that? My bad, I'll do that. Sorry. I usually forward them out once they're approved, and I didn't know I didn't do that.
And Jack Rose, the barn also?
Mm-hmm.
We saw that one last month.
We did?
He did, yeah, I brought that, he had come right at the meeting time, so I just brought it to the meeting. You approved it in the last meeting. And that email went out also, I know you sent that one out too. Any other questions on the report? So we're at the ones for overnight rentals there at the bottom. We are currently talking to attorneys on how to proceed with that. We're unsure. We actually thought about just renting it, but that's entrapment, we've been told, so. Who knew?
Do you want me to go rent it?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know, it's a nice house,
We
maybe
have-
I'd like a little vacation.
Is it,
You have like 3,000 a night for it?
Oh, well, maybe not.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
is it like
Something
bed
like
and
that
breakfast?
goes
Just thinking
Or not
about
rent
that.
the whole place?
It's a rent, and so, the council actually had me issue a letter, or told me to issue a letter, and then you heard in our last meeting, the hold the question motion went out from the mayor.
I didn't make it to that meeting.
Oh, so they made a motion before the minutes were approved to hold the question, which is a motion to hold that vote. And so we're at the attorney's office figuring strategically how we proceed
Okay.
with enforcing the overnight rental.
Where is this? Officer, is this?
So it's at the very end of Southfield Road, but we also have another one, same company. So in doing research, there's probably 15 in the valley owned by the same company.
Oh, really? It's owned by a company, not individuals?
Well, I think there's individuals involved, but I think it's,
So you say the end of Southfield. Who are the neighbors around? Which?
Mike Sullivan,
Okay.
Mike and Romy Sullivan. We've had complaints from the people on Big Hollow,
Kevin Nelson.
yeah,
Yeah,
backing
yeah.
up to that property.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of traffic and a lot of people lost trying to find it.
I think there's gonna be a lot more of that in the valley before long too. Seems that's the direction the valley's going.
So, yeah, and they really if you go up to Timber Lakes, that's all the homeowners association regulates that up there. That's how the county's going with that one up there. Anyway. Question?
I was just saying, they're thinking, you mentioned there's one business that owns 15 rental properties
Yes,
in the Heber Valley.
right.
Not in Dayton, okay.
Right, basement apartments, it's all over throughout the whole valley.
A lot of money in that now.
Yes. Okay? And so now we put a hold on this draft land use map that we talked about tonight that said we might want to identify where the commercial properties are. The council has voted not to move forward with that for the very reason of having that map that you saw tonight, like this one. Well, it says right here on this map. And if you, in his thing, if you guys read that it's zone commercial. He actually thinks it's zone commercial because of that map. And I'm like, well, that's not really correct, so.
He also said that has to be renewed. Do you ever remember renewal? I remember passing it, but I
Yeah,
don't
it has been
remember
renewed once.
renewal.
It has been renewed once. Ryan Starks did it.
Maybe that shouldn't be renewed next time.
I say, do you have to have it?
No.
Because it seems to cause a lot of issues.
The enterprise zone.
Yeah.
The only reason you'd have it is because you want to encourage businesses in that area.
But,
If you don't,
yeah.
then
But it doesn't really encourage businesses, it's just, as we just heard.
It's a confusion.
It's the tax break that's involved with
Right.
businesses that are already there.
which would, well, if you put a business there, you get the tax break too,
If it qualifies.
if it qualifies.
But the whole point of it was to get those businesses that were already there to qualify. That was
Oh.
the point of it. That was back when the recession was going on.
Okay, well,
And
then
so
we
they
should
were
just-
trying to get business, yeah, so I would suggest that maybe next time that doesn't get renewed.
and all the maps get deleted off the website.
Right.
Look,
It goes away. We don't have anybody
Nothing
who
gets,
qualifies.
nothing gets